Anything 25. Thank you for all the support I have in the drum community. I definitely want to throw out a shout out to Tony from All Classic Drum Covers for actually giving me a little, it seems like a little list in his channel on his All Classic Drum Covers. Thank you, Tony, for that. I appreciate that. And what I'm going to try to do is upload all my Ask Earl Anythings into that section of his Google Plus community. So thank you, Tony, for that. So let's get started with Ask Earl Anything number 25. Remember, your questions make the show. This week I'm back in my studio. Let me give you a little update on some things. First off, my studio is in flux right now. I just bought a new iMac 27-inch 5K computer. I'm leaving my 2011 Mac Mini server that I've been using for the last, oh gosh, 8 years almost. So now we're moving on to the new iMac, which also brought Final Cut Pro to come with my Logic. So lots of new things. I put up a drum cover this week. I want to say this to everybody out there. The drum cover was a Gary Moore tune. I forget exactly what it's called, but it was inspired by Mike Luke, another guy in the drum community. I want to shout out to him. He's trying to get a little bit of a competition going on this blues tune. It's 7 minutes. So I encourage all of you to go to his channel, and maybe I'll put that in the card somewhere, and you can, download the track and play along to it. It's a great blues tune, and I had a lot of fun with it, and that was one of the first things I did in the studio using Logic and Final Cut to cut it. So this is a whole new world for me. Final Cut's a little bit different than iMovie that I'd been using. There are some similarities, and I'm learning them. But right now, I'm just having a blast with it and learning everything, and there's a lot of learning curve. There's, of course, computer updates and plugins and all that good stuff in the process. But for the most part, I'm up and running doing some things. This is going to be my first Ask Earl Anything in Final Cut Pro. So this should be fun. And hopefully you'll see lots of new different changes. I'm going to try to use more cameras. One of the things that's really cool about the iMac is this thing called, I think they call it AirPlay, where basically if you're near that computer from my iPad, I can use my iPad to shoot the camera, I can send the video file right to the computer, which, believe it or not, saves a lot of time of basically putting in a drive in here, and this is why I didn't use 2 cameras for the longest time. So I actually have a stand for the iPad. I'm going to get a little stand for my iPhone, and I have my DSLR, which I'm using this time. And I hope to do some 3-camera shot stuff in here at a little higher quality. And of course, with Final Cut, I can do 3 cameras, 4 cameras, 5 cameras. So I'm hoping my production goes up a little bit on my drum videos. The syncing in Final Cut's amazing. Now, I still got to work on lighting and some other things, but again, this is all part of the process here. So in YouTube land. Anyhow, thanks for watching. Ask questions. That's all I can say. So this is the studio update. All right, first question comes from Jeff Holden, and the question is, he says this question. He wrote it this way. Going way back for this one, for me, I can remember the exact moment I figured out that I wanted to play drums. Do you have an aha moment? And if so, what was it when you decided you wanted to play drums? Great question, Jeff. I would say there's a couple aha moments. And for me, at 5 years old, there's a picture of me playing one of those paperhead drum kits at Christmas time. I didn't get to play it very long because my uncle came that day, and he put the kick drum. He broke the kick drum, or so. He put a stick through one of the heads. I think he put the stick through the tom head, and then about 3 days later, my mom's friends, who had 3 girls, they kicked the front bass drum head in. So that kit didn't last very long. So that wasn't real inspiring to play drums at 5 years old for very long. But those paperhead drums weren't going to last. But then I remember being at a parade. I was probably about 8 years old in Long Branch, New Jersey. And there was a band came down the parade, and hearing the sound of those drums really got my heart going, and that was a real moment for me. I would say the moment that drum kit came into my life, okay, I started doing drums in 6th grade, and the reason why I did drums in 6th grade had to do with the fact that my grandfather was a saxophone player. Now, I never met my grandfather. He passed long before I was ever born. My mom was 5 when he passed. But my grandmother lived with us, so I was going to play clarinet and saxophone, woodwinds. And I did in 5th grade, and that was pretty horrible. And I was still trying to play it in 6th grade, and then I was out on the playground one day. Actually, I wasn't out on the playground one day. Here's what happened. It was 5th grade softball or baseball. And my mom says to me, you're going to play softball because you're going to get hit in the face with a hard ball and you're going to break your teeth. That's what she said to me. I'll never forget this. It was the most ridiculous thing ever. So I finished the softball game playing Cub Scout softball, and basically on the way home we had to stop at the food store, and we stopped at the Acme in town and went to the Acme, and she asked me to go get something near the register, so I went and got something, and I was coming back to get to her, and I decided to not go through one of the registers that had a clear opening to go through. I decided to jump over this little hanging chain between the 2 registers that you were saying don't go across it. I jumped across it, caught my foot on the chain, fell on my face, and broke my 2 front teeth. Well, there went my saxophone playing career, my clarinet playing career. Being a woodwind player stopped that day, and I had these 2 broken front teeth forever, it seemed like. Actually, I don't think I really got them fixed until I was 17 years old. Okay? But the funny thing was, the reason I didn't play hardball that year was because the softball wasn't going to break my 2 front teeth. So needless to say, the next year I was playing baseball, real hardball baseball, Little League, which is what I wanted to do, with 2 broken teeth. So next year when band came up, I guess that was the September of 6th grade, I took up the drums. And I had a practice pad. And I remember in 7th grade, this guy came in who was a percussionist, and he had this Marine Pearl Rogers kit, and he had a timpani set up, and he was playing some jazz stuff. Anyhow, that really got my heartbeat going. When I was sitting there, I saw a guy playing a drum kit. Okay, so this is 6th grade. And by 7th grade, I went to a concert at the Garden State Arts Center of the Carpenters. My mom was a big Carpenters fan. We had the Carpenters albums in the house. The only albums we had in my house, and I was the firstborn, so I was not, hip enough to know about records or anything. But the only music we had in our house was a little bit of old-time Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin kind of stuff. A lot of 50s music that my dad would listen to on the radio all the time. My mom listened to the popular AM radio stations of the day, and she loved the Carpenters. So we had a Carpenters album, and then we had 2 or 3 Partridge Family albums. So it's right around the Partridge Family time. And anyhow, we went and saw the Carpenters in concert at the Garden State Arts Center. And they had 2 drummers. One was Cubby O'Brien, who had a blue clear swirl Vistolite kit, I found out. I always thought it was blue. I really couldn't tell from where I was sitting. And Karen Carpenter had a clear kit. So we went to the Carpenters concert. I was so stoked to go to this concert. And after I came back, I wanted to be a drummer. That was when I wanted to be a drummer, for sure. And I never forget this. A week later, I went to Cape Cod with my good friend Brian R. Scott. And this is where the story takes me to. And we were in Hyannisport, I believe it was. Hyannisport on Cape Cod. And there was a drum shop in Hyannisport. And we went into the drum shop, and they were selling Rogers drums. And I remember thumbing through the catalog, the 72, 73 catalog. And how do I remember that? Well, number one, I have a copy of that catalog. I didn't get it that day, but I eventually got a copy of it. And I'll never forget looking at Rogers drums. That's when I had a fascination with drum catalogs and drums after that point in time. And it wasn't until I was 15 years old that I started playing drums. So, anyhow, that was the inspiration, was the Carpenters, and that concert I went to. That's what set me off into being a drummer. Next question comes from Zach Drums. And Zach Drums said one question, and he actually had 2 questions, by the way. This is the first of one. One question: how do Meinl cymbals hold compared to other brands? Well, Zach, I've never played Meinl cymbals. Now, I don't know if you mean value or if they really last. I would say Meinl cymbals have been around long enough now that I can safely say that Meinl cymbals must be a good cymbal company, because a lot of guys are playing them. And a lot of guys like playing them. So I would say Meinl cymbals have definitely come up in the world. Just like all the cymbal companies, there are lesser lines and then there are better lines, okay? The key when buying cymbals is to know a lesser line versus a professional line. When I started playing drums, you knew what a pro line cymbal was. When you saw Avidus Zildjian, A Zildjian, you knew that those were pro cymbals. When you saw camber, okay, or crut, you knew that was garbage. It was very easy to recognize garbage compared to the sound of a Zildjian cymbal. Well, somewhere in the 80s, that started to change in a big way. And companies like Meinl came in, and they were making cymbals, and I wasn't sure if they were good cymbals or bad cymbals. As a matter of fact, it's some of the Meinl cymbals and some of the Paiste cymbals are made of brass, and they had that same crut camber sound. Now, no offense to Adam, AR drummer, who loves buying crazy old brass type cymbals and plays them all the time. No offense to you, Adam, but those aren't pro cymbals when you look at a crut or a camber. You're not looking at pro. And we all knew it. It was either nickel or nickel brass, and those cymbals didn't have the sound. Just like the Ludwig Standards, they were a lower line cymbal. The funny thing is, everybody today wants to sound like lower line cymbals. And Meinl's made a career of it, by the way. Meinl makes some of the dirtiest, nastiest sounding cymbals in their top end line. So you spend $300 to get a cymbal that sounds like a crut or a camber. Can't believe it. But the key to buying cymbals is knowing what line you're buying in. Which brings me to a story that I'm going to interject in here today, because I have a hater now in my, this is part of YouTube, I believe. I have a hater now. If you noticed on my videos the last couple weeks, I've been getting thumbs down. I had some guy that attached himself to me. I actually allowed on my Facebook page, so I'm going to have to be a lot more close about my Facebook page. I actually got rid of him. But this guy started asking me questions about cymbals and heads and sticks and everything else under the sun. And you know, guys, I try to answer these questions for you. I'll write them out. Well, what he really wanted to do was he wanted to trade stuff with me, because he's heard me talk in videos about trading stuff. Let me say this about trading stuff. I trade with people that have equal or better quality equipment than I do. I am not one of those guys who doesn't know what something's worth. This guy didn't know what anything was worth, and that's the bottom line to the story. And one of the things he bought was some low line Sabians and Paistes, and he wanted to trade for crash cymbals and stands, and he wanted to trade me DVDs of Ozzy Osbourne for cymbals. Guys, off your rocker. YouTube is a crazy place. That's all I got to say to you. So if you want to see I have a hater now. My hater just keeps putting thumbs down on everything. Okay? I'm not going to reveal his name. I do want him to stop, but if he doesn't, you know, I'm not going to reveal his name, at least for now. But there are people that are crazy out there, all right? And I just want to say that right in the middle of this show, because if he watches it, I'm going to get a thumb down if he watches it or doesn't, okay? But he's one of those guys that might have been playing drums for a long time, but doesn't know what the value of anything is, okay? You have to know the value of something before you buy it. It's real easy to do research, guys. You go on eBay, you see what the value of something is. All right? It cracks me up when I see people selling old drum heads on eBay trying to sell them for the price of a brand new one. It cracks me up when I go on eBay and I see a Paiste 602 with a huge crack in it and they're trying to sell it for $400. It's like, are you kidding me? Am I that stupid? Well, there are people out there that are. Okay? I just want you all to know I'm not one of those guys. All right? I'm one of those guys that will help you avoid those guys. That's for sure. So, Meinl, back to the Meinl question. Meinl's great cymbals, and that's the way I look at it. They're great cymbals, but know which line you're buying from. You're buying Binance, I think they're called, Binance. You're buying their B20 line, or their new classic alloy cymbals. They're great cymbals. These are all great sounding cymbals, okay? Just know what you're buying, know what line you're buying. And Zach, you had another question, and the other question was, can you try a cover song from Greta Van Fleet? And he said, hope Hope you and Mrs. Hammer have a great weekend. That was last weekend when we were in North Carolina on vacation. Greta Van Fleet. I've been seeing a lot of covers from Jeff Holden on Greta Van Fleet, and a couple other guys are starting to do them. Greta Van Fleet has become the Led Zeppelin of this day, from what I can tell. I'd love to do one of their covers. I'm going to see what I can do. I've actually put their album into my Spotify, and I'm going to try to listen to it. And I'll see what comes up in the next couple months. You know, Greta Van Fleet is definitely one that's on the radar of a new up-and-coming band I should do, because it's definitely in my wheelhouse. I hate that term wheelhouse, just so you know, but somehow it describes what songs kind of fit that I play well. And anything that's in that rock blues genre, I can play. It's my wheelhouse. That's why I was promoting the Mike Luke contest. That Gary Moore blues song is in my wheelhouse. I didn't spend more than... I actually did it 3 times completely through the 7 minutes. 3 times. The third one is what I kept. And I did a couple false starts, like got through a minute or two, just finding the little bumps in the road, so to speak. And I had some monitor issues, you know, ears issues, and camera issues. So it looked like I probably did 8 takes, but in actuality it was only 3 complete takes all the way through. And the third one was the one that stuck. And I didn't spend a lot of time on it at all, but it's my wheelhouse. It's what I do. It's how I play, you know? So Greta Van Fleet is on the radar, Zax, and I hope to do that cover soon. The next question comes from Drumman190. And Drumman says to me, because it's summertime, some people go away and don't have much time to drum. What are your suggestions on practicing and keeping up your drumming? And I have to tell you something, William. It really cracked me up that I got this last week, because I was in North Carolina and my intention was to have my practice pad for Ask Earl Anything 24, and my practice pad and my sticks were in my closet because my wife took my bag the week before to go on a business trip, and took my drumsticks and pad out of my bag, which was my bag. She wanted to use a smaller bag on the flights she had. So long and the short of it is, I would say have a pair of sticks and a practice pad and do stick control and do syncopation. I actually have those books as PDFs. I can pull them up on my iPad and I can sit in a hotel room and do it. And I like to have a pair of brushes, you know, because I think I did a video way back in February. I don't know how many of you guys saw the video, but it was just me in a hotel room doing... just on a newspaper, on an ottoman in the hotel room. So I like to have a pair of brushes too. Sometimes I'll just sit there and do brushes, and what I'll do is I'll do my favorite little rudiments and licks, and I'll practice traditional. Then I'll do it, you know, match grip. So that's all I do. But to be honest, last week I didn't practice a lick. Not a lick. So that's the truth. I wish I had my pad with me. It would have been fun. But that's about it, you know. You also saw that I did this little video of me in a drum shop in Asheville, North Carolina. There were no traditional drums and no drum kits there. All they had was hand drums. So that was a lot of fun playing with the hand drums. So I had brought a hand drum with me to jam with my son-in-law. So that was fun. But yeah, that's what I would say to do. That's a good idea. All right. The next question comes from Tony at All Classic Drum Covers. And Tony has a couple questions. The first question was, how old were you when you got your first drum set? I think I said that into Jeff's question. No, I didn't say it, actually. When I got my first drum kit, I was 15 years old. It was after I came back from Cape Cod, and I'll never forget this. It was 9th grade. I was 14 years old, and I played in the stage band. And when I played in the stage band, I couldn't play the kick drum and the snare drum in time. So I played a backbeat, but I couldn't get the kick. It was wrong. I just couldn't get it to lock. We did this song called Traces with a choir. And Traces was a really nice soft rock ballad from the 60s, early 70s, late 60s. And the beat was just... right? It was just the money beat. We did the concert in May of that year, and I was 14, and the day of the concert's when I finally got to where the foot worked for the first time. That was the end of freshman year of high school. I didn't have a drum kit, but I remember practicing in my sister's bedroom, playing to Elton John songs, trying to stomp my foot and playing on pillows, right? Well, October of that year, right before Halloween, the next year, I was 15, I just turned 15, so it had to be 1975. I bought a drum kit, and I had a choice of 4 drum kits to buy. I went to Blue Note Music in Long Branch. 2 of the kits were Gretsch kits. One was kind of a blue, oyster blue kit. One was a silver sparkle Gretsch kit with a little 20-inch bass drum. The oyster blue had a 22, 12, 13, 16. I only remember this because I took lessons there for 2 or 3 years. I used to look at those kits. And I had a friend in high school named Tom Chavone who had a blue sparkle Gretsch kit, and he said Gretsch was the only drums to buy. Of course, I didn't buy the Gretsch kit. All right. So Tom Chavone, if you happen to tune into this by some mistake, just know that I eventually bought a Gretsch kit and became a Gretsch lover, but it was right after I left high school when I got into college. There were 2 other kits there besides the Gretsch kits. There was a Champagne Sparkle Ludwig kit, big beat, 12, 13, 16, 22, with I think it had a metal snare drum. I don't think it was a wood. It was a metal Superphonic. And then they had in the window a blue Vistalite. It was actually a Hollywood kit because it didn't come with the big beat stand package. So both of them were Hollywood kits. It came with the flat bass stands. And it was 12, 13, 16, 22, 5x14 blue Vistalite snare drum. And of course, who did I see? The Carpenters, Vistalite drums. I bought the Visti kit. That was it. I had that Visti kit till I went to college, and I bought the Gretsch kit in 1979. So I had that kit for about 4 years, and that was my first drum kit. So I got it at 15 years of age, and I played that Vistalite kit. And it came with a 21-inch Rock 21 ride and a pair of 14-inch New Beat hi-hats. Both have since left my life. I eventually got a set of New Beat hi-hats from around that same era that I have today. They're 79s, not 76s. But okay, back to the second part of Tony's question. Do you remember the first song you learned on the drums? Well, keeping in theme with today's show, in actuality, probably the first songs I learned on the drums were off of that Carpenters album, Close to You, that my mom had, or the Partridge Family, the Red album, with I Think I Love You on it. I remember those were the only music I had in the house until my sister bought Barry Manilow, and she had Barry Manilow and she had Elton John, but she wasn't letting me borrow the records at that point in time. The first couple months I had the drums, I had the record player of my mom's, which was this really old RCA record player, the kind that would drop the records down on it and have the stem sticking through. I don't think I started stealing her 45s and albums till probably about 5-6 months later, you know. So, as a matter of fact, my first year of playing drums, my neighbors hated me so much they wanted to pay my parents to buy the drum kit so they could burn it in the street. That's what the guy said, my neighbor next door, his dad. All I would play is... That's why I play it all day and night. That's the only, they say, is that the only beat you know? I call that the 9-year-old rock beat. Of course, I didn't do it until I was 15 because I didn't have a drum kit until I was 15. But that was probably the first songs I played. Now, eventually, somewhere in that 6-month period, I bought a Chicago album. Now, let me say something else about my early drumming experience. My grandmother lived with me at home and with my mom and dad, which I could tell you all the reasons why that's not a good idea for in-laws to live with and raise your kids with your in-laws and your in-law, my grandmother, God rest her soul. My mom and dad had it tough. It was not easy, okay? But one of the things my mom was, she was like a nut about the downstairs living room looking a certain way. And my drum kit was in the downstairs living room. So the first 9 months I had that drum kit, this is October, so that was my sophomore year of high school. If I wanted to play drums, okay, I had to set that drum kit up. One of the things my grandmother knew, being married to a musician, was you get cases for your instrument. And I still have my original cases, believe it or not. I did not give my cases to anybody. I kept those cases. I have hard, fibery shell cases still in my garage from my original kit, except for the 22-inch bass drum I gave to somebody. But the 13, 12, 16 by 16, and those three tom cases, I still own those tom cases. And I eventually bought a 14 by 20 for this kit. I have a hard shell 14 by 20. I got a hard shell 14-inch snare drum case. Okay? So my grandmother bought cases. So here's what my mom did to me. She said, you cannot keep that drum kit set up. You have to take it down when you're done playing with it. So if I wanted to play drums, I would come home from school and the decision was, do I go out and play basketball or football or street hockey with my friends, which is what I was into doing, or am I going to play drums? Because if I was going to play drums, it was going to be a major thing. And that first 9 months, I would come in and say, I'm staying in today, and I would take the drums out of my grandmother's closet, and I'd bring them into the rec room. That's what it was. It was our rec room, our recreation room. And I would set my drum kit up, and I would play it right to dinner time. And then I'd eat dinner, and after dinner, I'd come down the stairs, and I'd play it a couple more minutes, and it was bedtime, and I had to take the whole kit down and put it away in the closet. Now, if that's not a deterrent for a kid to not play drums, I don't know what it is. But that's what I did. And I would take my kit and I'd put it away, and I'd set it up, and I'd put it away, and I'd set it up and put it away. And I did that for a long time, for about 9 months. Till finally they realized I wasn't going to stop playing, and the kit stayed up in that rec room the last, junior and senior year of high school. Eventually moved into the utility room where we had the heating system, and it was kind of the washer dryer. I eventually got in there. They pushed me in there and got me out of that room. But that was my early experiences with that drum kit. I would set it up and take it down. That's why I'm so good at setting up and taking down stuff. I'm a nut because it was never the same. I never left my kit in the same position ever. I was constantly taking it down and setting it up. I mean, when I go on a gig, this is another thing. When I go on a gig and I play, I'm usually torn down before the guitar player is torn down. I take the whole kit and tear it down. That's me. And why does that happen? Because who I am is I know how to set it up quick, I know how to tear it down quick and get the heck out of there. That's what I learned how to do when I was doing a lot of freelance gigs. I didn't want to stick around. So I'm the one, if I am sticking around, it's because I'm waiting around to get paid. That's what used to happen to me all the time. But anyhow, I went on that rant right there, but couple cool stories in that bit. All right. One more question from All Classic Drum Covers, Tony. He says, your drums sound amazing. And this was on the Shania Twain song, I believe. Do you tune your bottom heads higher or lower than the top head of the kit? They actually sound like they're tuned a hair down. And the answer to that question is you're probably right. They are tuned a hair down. If they're not a hair down, they're right up, almost about together. Okay? But usually it's just a hair down on the bottom head. Now that is not the bottom way to tune a drum head, by the way. John Bonham's technique for tuning a tom is the bottom head is tighter than the top. I don't know how much tighter. For me, it's always been somewhere around, the heads are around the same pitch, or the bottom head's a little bit lower pitch. I think especially on the floor tom. Yeah. I think the bottom head's just a little lower. That's what gives it that bigness. The other reason why this floor tom sounds amazing is that I have a certain foot on my legs. And the foot I use is the Pearl rubber foot. Okay? And the Pearl rubber foot's got a big rubber foot, and it's got a hole in the middle of it. And the hole is kind of a suspension foot. And what I would say to you is I'd recommend everybody put them on their floor tom legs. Because if you want to get more resonance out of your floor tom, those things help like rims mounts do for toms. So they're better than buying the floor tom rims mounts, in my opinion. I've had guys that have floor tom mounts. They say I get just as much resonance or more out of my drums out of that way. Another cheater way to do that is to actually put a piece of foam from studio foam, this kind of stuff, put it on the floor tom legs to get that same kind of suspension thing going on with the floor toms. But those Pearl, they're worth the 13, 14 bucks they cost. They're worth it. So, well, thank you for watching Ask Earl Anything number 25. I appreciate your support. You guys make the show. So leave questions, leave comments. Haters, leave me alone. Thanks for watching Ask Earl Anything. Your questions make the show, and I appreciate it. And I will see you next week. Bye.